Okay, so I'm back. And I've had this virtual pinball machine for like a little over a year now, and I'm kind of wrapping things up. I've got about as many tables as I can think I would want out there. At 970 something. I wanted to get to 999. I'm not going to be able to get there unless I don't know, bring in FX two or three tables, if I get really adventurous with future pinball, or if I just wait around to see what other originals come out. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. But I wanted to make one more video to discuss my thoughts of this whole pinball thing, this virtual pinball thing, because my videos before told the story of how I was feeling at the time. But I feel kind of differently now on some things. So I wanted to bring that up. I actually had a whole video talking about how to size Theater of Magic, right? One of the best known tables. And I spent a long time sizing it up like this. I would not size it up like this anymore. Because right now I'm into as much realism as I can. And I do have another actual pinball machine in the back of my basement. I was playing it and I thought, man, this feels different. This might feel better, but it feels different. So I should take my machines here and just make them feel, better, more like the real thing. There's great original tables on this thing. Some are not so great. Some great artwork like Shag. I've got these classic ones. I think Time Fantasy is the one which seemed so trippy that afterwards they started saying say no to drugs on every pinball machine. I bet this is the one that, put the government on edge with that. But I wanted to, I gotta get back to that one. Here's a better indication. I really like this machine. It's kind of funny, I'm a huge fan of The Who, and you never see like a Tommy pinball machine. There was one called Wizard. There was there was something, oh, where's my, there it is. Elton John had one in 77 and might have kind of dealt with it. This one is like the Broadway version. So you hear the music, but you don't hear, you hear like Broadway versions of. But please notice on here how I've got this, I still have this watermark here. But you notice how I got the dead space there? I wasn't crazy about that at first, but it's worthwhile to me now because the proportions are more correct. I don't know, if I look at it this way, maybe you can tell. Aspect ratios of actual pinball machines, height to width, I forget what they are, but they might be like in the 2.5, give or take range, 2.5 to 1. And any monitor you buy is almost 2 to 1. So you're never going to get it exactly the way you want it. So what I've decided is I'm going to sacrifice this little space. My cabinet here, I think, is right about 2 feet or 24 inches wide. And an actual pinball machine is maybe more like 22. So it's only like an extra inch. Take an extra inch over here, over there. Everything else feels more right now. So I wanted to kind of give you an idea as to, it's funny, I never actually play a game whenever I'm filming here. Let me see if I can get this to work here. See that color? I love that. There are things you can add that I'm not crazy about. There are things you can add that I love. That color, I love. I'm not even gonna bother hitting the flipper. Now, you know what? I've done about that bad on this machine before, but I've had some good balls too. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off because I got many things to show you here. But what I wanted was something that felt more like the real thing. So that's why I'm into now is realism. And I think I was gonna, just looking at some of these here, a Twilight Zone actually is kind of right because Twilight Zone is a famous wide body. Actually, I kind of play the black and white version done by Schizo. It's not completely black and white, but it's wonderful. I love it. And what I'll often do is I'll look at the flipper itself. I'm going to try to zoom in on one. And if that flipper looks symmetric to me, then I feel like I got it right. If it's not, like say in Twister, now it's kind of hard to see because the wheel images, but it seems kind of obscured. And so on something like this, I would actually want to change it. And I'm going to do that right now, just to give you an idea. Do it real fast. Let's look up here. I opened up a couple of my tables in advance. Okay, I have upgraded my VP to 10.7, so all this looks a little bit different. But what I'm still gonna do is, in essence, hit F6, which is over here. And now instead of going up in that corner all the time, it's down here, which is nice. So you can see my inclination's at about 7. I usually have it either 4 or 8. If there's more vertical stuff up there, more, you know, thickness, more height, I'll have it more in the 8 range. So in fact, let me make that 8 right now. 8.6, yeah. I can get pretty anal retentive with this. Okay, and then let's see. I have my layback at right around 45 every time. And then I go to field of view. And this I make so that I see a little part of the bottom of the flipper. Yeah, that's the wrong way. It's kind of hard to see when they're all black, right? Yeah, so we'll go with that. Usually it's around 30. Okay, go with that. Now I want to show you something. If I go to this, see the XY scale? X is about 1.9 and Y is 1.52. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make my Y scale equal to the X scale. Now watch what happens here. Oh, you're dead on, there it is. See the difference? That's a lot of dead space. But that's about as perfect a circle as you can have. There's a symmetry here. It's probably easier to see it this way. See that? There's a symmetry in the flippers. And I've still got just a little bit of the bottom part of the bumper here. I can still see plenty of the sides here. So this is, from my understanding, what it should look like. So do I play it this way? No. This seems too extreme to me. I've got to find like a happy medium. So what I do is I kind of set my X and Y scales so they're exactly the same. And then I think, well, normally I'd have it like right around here. This area here, that's what I'm going to size it up to. So here we go. There. So it's sort of an in-between now. So it's still a little wider than it would be. There's not as much dead space, but there's some. And it's more realistic. Maybe not perfectly realistic. But if I have the X and Y scales exact, it just feels so strange. One of the YouTubers out there named Lonnie Payne, and he makes some pretty good videos. He did something really clever with his cabinet. I can't do it. But he actually cut out a little bit here and on the other side, and he has his monitor actually sticking outward, and he put these little red pieces of wood on the side to cover it up so that that dead space is kind of built in within the side of the cabinet so you don't notice it as much. That's cool. If I was going to redesign my cabinet, I'd see how I could possibly do that. I'm not sure how I would. I'd probably have to use something better than IKEA and 4x4s, but I would want to do something like that. So let me go ahead and escape out of here. I'm going to Alt F4 to save. Okay, now I'm going to play this thing. Because there are some things I have added on the machine that I want to show you. And Twister's a really good example of it. If I wanted realism, when I was wrapping up this machine, it felt that way and I felt like I was done. I'm like, what am I missing? I'm missing tactile. I'm missing feedback. There's lots of different things you can buy. You can buy lots of LEDs. That doesn't feel real to me. In fact, to me, that distracts. But what does feel real is that knock against the wood that you will get when you play.
You ready?
Oh, I guess I gotta put in some money. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Okay, did you hear that click? Did you hear that buzz? So I've got solenoids in here, and I've got, I'll make it player. Woo, hello. All right, one flipper? No, not good enough. Oh, right, new one. This one's so funny. You miss this skill shot and you get 5 million points for missing the skill shot. I don't know, it's just funny. The inflation of points is hilarious. And they pull back on it in some respects, though. But this machine's okay. I feel like everything on it is based on this. But it does lead to maybe the coolest multi-ball in all of pinball. I love the multi-ball on this, what it does. So The solenoids will hit every time I hit a flipper. Hear that? You can even hear the little vibration. Okay. In fact, I'm going to show you what I use for these things. The shaker motor that I got. I tried to bring up some stuff here so it wouldn't be so shaky, but I'll get to that in a second. Okay. Unfortunately, this is currently out of stock. I didn't buy it that long ago. I'm sure Zeb's Boards is going to come back for it, but it's a plug-and-play shaker. They did charge $125 for me. I'll admit I wish it was a little bit stronger, but maybe if it were actually stronger, it might do some damage to my cabinet or my computer. So I guess I'm actually okay with it. Directions came with it. It wasn't that difficult. And then I had the solenoids, and someone I was talking to on one of the boards, this is his eBay website, and this is what he creates. He gives you plug and play for your solenoids. Some people have as many 12 solenoids in their cabinet. Some have 10. He gives you 8, and you have 4 on the left side and 4 on the right. I do have those installed in here. I would have to break my aching back to show you that they're actually in there, but they are. And, you know, he made it sound like it'd be pretty simple to install. And I know just enough about computers to be dangerous. So I had to get a hold of him, but he was very helpful. He talked me through. And so I want to give a shout out for anybody who is looking to fairly quickly and easily install that tactile feedback in your machine, which I was looking for. Go ahead and check him out on eBay. So, and he's in Ohio. That's pretty cool. So I've got that. And that's feeling better. But the whole, I don't know, there's like a distaste in my mouth. And I was going to say the whole industry, but that's actually the point. It's not an industry. It's a hobby. But it's becoming an industry. And it can't sustain being an industry for very long. I wanted to come up with a good example of what it is I'm thinking about. So here's what I came up with. Big fan of Rene Magritte. I think this is called the Treachery of Images. Ceci n'est pas une pipe. Okay? I guess the point here is he paints a pipe and he says it's not a pipe. And that Ceci means it's a certain kind of this in French. It's like a different version of. You see it, it looks like a pipe. He says it's not a pipe. And we know it's a painting of a pipe, but it's a little bit deeper than that en français. And the French equivalent of pinball is un flipper. I looked it up. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you is ceci n'est pas un flipper. If you're watching this, and I hope you are, because I don't know why you're even paying attention if you're not watching, go ahead and watch. I felt this way when I was looking at this for the first time. I like vector. You look at this through a camera and you think, wow, that looks so real. You almost imagine that there's a depth there that there isn't really. And it's because you're used to people filming a three-dimensional image and you kind of add the third dimension. What you're seeing right here is exactly what I see. I don't have an extra dimension. So anybody that's interested in virtual pinball, if you can, look at one first. I mean, actually be there. If you know someone that has one, it's hard to find. You know, maybe you, I don't even know how you do it, to be honest, but try to see what it looks like. Or if you've got a computer with any decent power, try to install something and play one table to get a feel for it before you go off on, you know, a giant journey where you're spending, you know, you're buying a gaming computer and, well, in my case, I used my old plasma TV to give me an excuse to buy a better TV in the living room. So I was happy with that. It is different. It's not really pinball. It looks like pinball, but it's not, and you sense it. And a lot of the hobby struggles with how to make it realistic from a 3D standpoint. The only real 3D is an actual pinball machine. But who has the money for all those different pinball machines? You know, you might be able to handle one, maybe every few months. You're in a community and you trade pinball machines and you've got a good dolly and a strong back. Sure, go ahead and do that. But if you're like me, you're okay with an approximation. But you're okay. You're not blissfully happy. I spent a long time on this and I've got all these different, 970 some tables. And, if I had to do it all over again, there are things I'd change. I'd probably work harder at getting a real cabinet. I kind of like my design here. I was actually gonna paint some lines on it, some versions of gray to make it look like roadie cases, you know? But I went on the cheap and I kind of regret it. I just was never able to find an actual pinball machine that was kind of run down, but the legs and the body were still pretty decent. So I'd, pull it out and build from there. If you have access to that, I think you'll enjoy it more that way. I've had to make do. I've kind of redesigned my back glass so it feels more like the bezels are there. I've got that gray bar and I can't hide that because I didn't give Microsoft $100 for the ability to hide my taskbar. I tried going through the registry to figure out how to do it and I could not. And again, I know enough to be dangerous. I really shouldn't be playing with the registry on this. I think, was it Ford that started the concept of mass production? Don't do mass production when you're getting your tables. Do them one or a handful at a time. You are really going to regret it if you download 100 tables and then try to set them up. And then down the road, you want to change things. I mean, think about where I am. I want to change the width. Viper night driving, not a fan of Mad Cow. But if you want to change the width, well, I've got 900 tables I have to change the width on now. And I like Pinball Y, and I like the media capture, but it takes about 2 minutes to capture each one. So 1,800 minutes, was that 30 hours? 30 solid hours? I'm not going to spend 30 solid hours doing that, so it's going to take me months to figure that out. So get your favorite tables, just a few, play with those, decide how you're going to download. I really like Roland. Let me turn that on because I just changed this one around to make it more realistic to me. How you're going to do every single part of it before you start doing it. Don't do mass production. Do it one at a time. Then you get a little treat with every one you do and you don't have to go back again and play around with it. That would be my suggestion.
Oh, that's like rain.
Every time I look at a table like this, I want this to look as much as like a perfect circle because it is a perfect circle. It spins. That's really close. I can believe this. It's an early Pat Lawler table. His tables were fantastic, right? So happy to have stuff like this. In fact, I don't know if you can tell, but you see how the reflection there? You see how my play field has the reflection of the back glass? I don't really know how to solve that well. The only thing I've been able to do is this. See this cardboard? I stick it in. That's what I do. So if I sit right, I don't really see the cardboard and I don't have reflection. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I think, I don't know, maybe that's not realistic enough. I guess actual DMDs do reflect. And I've got this 20-degree angle, which actually minimizes the reflection, I believe, or at least the area which reflects. Yeah, I do that. The solenoids that I put in, it'd be nicer if instead of just on the left and the right wall, is like kind of angled towards the middle, because most of your pop bumpers are in the middle. But I can't do that the way I develop my cabinet. And I keep bringing up how many tables I have. I kind of regret it. I spend so much time collecting so many tables that I'll never play. My wife is trying to review them one at a time. She's gotten through less than a fourth of them and spent a lot of time doing it. Find the ones you like. Play those. Someone else suggests one, go ahead and find it. But what I am going to suggest when you go get that table, and we should talk about this because this is something that has changed in the hobby, say thanks to the person that made it. I'm going to give you that really strong suggestion. There were mostly two sites I would go to. VPUniverse.com has the color DMDs, which I love. VPinball has most of the pup packs and some of the tables. This is what VPinball looks like now. It went down a couple of weeks ago, just like that. A couple weeks prior to that, the guy who ran VPinball, I think R&R is what he goes by, and he's been around for a very long time. I mean, go to vpinball.com and see what he said. This is a problem with the hobby. If it's becoming an industry, it is not fun. He wasn't enjoying it anymore. He apologized to the people that this inconvenienced, but he had to get out. And no one can blame him, because, well, in fact, look at this, the Ducks Retro spreadsheet. Everything that's red is what's not working. So go all the way down here, and there's all these tables you can't currently access. But a lot of the authors are moving them over to VP Universe or vpforums.org. This has almost always been my go-to site. It was enough that I bought a lifetime subscription to it, or signed up, because I felt like I've gotten that much out of it that I wanted to say thanks. But let's say you go to a table. Let me see tables available here. Now these are new ones, and I think people are doing a better job. All right, Bossman 72 redid Kiss. All right. So at this moment, 1,070 people have looked. 306 people have downloaded. 306. Here are all the thank yous he's gotten. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So about 1 out of every 60. And I'm telling you, that is a higher percentage than I typically see. People will say less than 1% of the people will say thanks. I haven't said thanks here because I haven't put this one on there, but I am now in the habit of saying thank you to everybody that has done all this work to make a more realistic actual table that I can play for free. I don't get anything, right? By the way, if you're watching this video and there was an ad in front of it, that's not me. I'm not going to try to make money talking about a hobby where no one should make money. But YouTube has started to do that, which I guess is their right, but I'm not particularly happy with it. So my request is, if you get in the community, at the very least, thank the people who do what they do. I mean, just think about when you do something. Getting a thank you, a pat on the back, can really mean a lot. Here's VP Universe, so this is still around, and thank them too there as well. Just make sure that you show respect. That's what I would ask to do. And I've been talking about a lot of the things I wouldn't do. I should talk about some of the things I would, or that I did do right. I'm actually pretty happy with this. I don't know a lot about computers. I had to build my own computer. I learned to solder. That's not that hard. You can, I'm sure on Zeb's board you can buy something that's already complete for all the tactile if you need it. I used mjrnet.org's pinball guide. I can't stress enough the importance of that. Michael Roberts came up with that, and that has been the single most important thing that I have dealt with while playing with this thing. I would definitely suggest a 4K playfield. If you just have no money and you have a 1080, okay. If you don't have the room, or you have a 32-inch back glass, yeah, you can. But if you're looking for realism, don't you want something that's about the same size as the real thing? Don't you want something that can really fool you? Don't you want buttons that have a regular button and a MagnaSave? Don't you want an actual plunger? And then the launch ball for those mid-90s tables that don't use it or aren't programmed to use the actual plunger? I have not gotten into like surround sound feedback, but yes, I've gotten into that DOF and that tactile stuff. And that, I think, has made the difference. But I am worried. I tell you, do a few things at a time. Do a few tables. But I'll admit, New Year's Eve, I was downloading a lot of tables because I had a real concern that it was all going to shut down, just because it was the new year. A couple years ago, Gottlieb said, do not share our ROMs anywhere. And as you hear many people say, Google is your friend if you want to find Gottlieb ROMs. And I can't tell you any more on that either. But people do play Gottlieb virtual pinball tables somehow. Maybe Google can help you in that regard. Stern is willing to share their ROMs on their own page. They don't yet consider this a threat. They don't feel like it's the same thing. They don't feel like it's close enough to dig into what they are creating. The hobby, most of the people are very careful not to reproduce Stern tables that were still out there being produced and are for sale. Pinball machines nowadays are pretty expensive, right? They start like at $7,000 or $8,000. And I did pay less than $8,000 for everything you see here. All in all, probably about $3,500. And people do it for less, people do it for more. But you'll still see some people trying to recreate a table that just came out, and they'll get shut down. I'm not going to show you this, but there are people on eBay, and there are companies in Australia comes to mind that are, I guess it's tragedy of the commons, if you know anything about game theory. All this stuff is available for free. All can use it, but all must respect that. And if you don't, it can take down the entire system. So there are people out there who are creating pinball machines with the tables that were recreated. This one is a guy named Siggy, right? It was his mod. I'm showing that. It's great. Love this machine. He did a great job. Thank you, Siggy. Thank you. What a character. And speaking of what a character, you know, he did Beach Bums, which I talked about before. I really like that. Really like that machine. Another one he did, this is one of the all-time great originals, is Tom and Jerry. Let me get to it. And again, I'm not going to show, I'll show the, it's right next to Tommy. This is so cool. I'll even start it here. There's probably a pup pack for this that I don't have. I'm not really that much of a fan of pup packs because I feel like it distracts from me actually playing the game. I don't feel that way about color DMDs. I love color DMDs. But this is so cool and it's so fun to play. I love just when you do the skill shot and suddenly the window lights up and there's a dog there. It's worth looking at. This is great. And apparently a company in Australia thinks it's great enough that they make, or at least a year ago, they were making a pinball machine where not only did it have what a character's Tom and Jerry, but the sides of the cabinet had these graphics of Tom and Jerry that I think they might have gotten directly from him. And do you think they gave him as much as a penny? No, of course not. The thing is, they can't and they shouldn't. And if they did offer any of the community a penny, they would say, no, this is all for free. You can't pay for it, but you can't charge for it. So that's the tragedy of the commons. A few people see a way to make money, and if enough people do that, you're gonna have a lot of backlash. You're possibly gonna have authors that don't wanna share their tables anymore. And there's a couple of tables out there that there are VPX versions of, and you can't get them. You have to know somebody. They're not gonna just put them on VP Universe or VP Forums or Rogue Pinball or IR Pinball or Pinball Nirvana. There's lots of sites, you know, there's Facebook sites. Some people hate those, some people like them a lot. But what I also see happening is the Sterns of the world and Jersey Jack, you know, other companies are gonna be like, you know what? That's enough. People who don't work for us are now making money. And the hobby can say, we're not doing it. It's like, well, too bad. You know, you're creating these things and our people are doing it, and this whole thing might get shut down. So I do feel a sense of urgency. I don't know how long-term sustainable this is. I'm not a MBA guy, but I just worry about it. And there's just like a tension out there. There's just so many people talking about how vpinball.com closed and what that means. And I'm just trying to enjoy it for what it is. So I guess what I'm going to tell you is, if you are interested in this, and you really should be, please be willing to do as much as possible yourself. Now you notice I paid a company for a shaker motor, and I paid another member of the community for the solenoids that he set up. There's nothing illegal about that, you know. He helped me on that. Respect the people, well, respect the companies that make these machines to begin with. Respect Stern and Bally and Williams and Gottlieb and all those, right? For what they did. Respect the people that recreated them for free so you can enjoy it. And don't make money on it. Don't do it. It's not gonna last if you do that. And then everybody's gonna get shut down. The people trying to make money, the people trying to share it for free. It all goes away. And I really think this adds to pinball's enjoyment and more people are aware of it. The pinball industry, I think, would actually take a hit if something like that happens. And it just starts with that little bit of greed, right? Love of money. It's the root of all evil. Don't be greedy. Enjoy it for what it is. But enjoy it. It's fun. Thanks for watching.